Helios, I don't know so much about. Usually, I think it's really interesting because usually Helios and Capu are working together with all of their decks. So I wonder what different strategies they brought from each other and how how they'll both do compared to each other, given that they weren't working together this time around.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see them play against each other.
Okay, so it looks like Helios is bringing a sack deck again, using Oaklings and Overgrown Towers, which is an interesting one. Um, Lou starts with the kind of red. Maybe it's control. Maybe it's a bit. Maybe it's more of a burn deck with the blood obelisks. Um, Helios's deck looks very interesting though so far.
I like the Court Jester as a sack target, especially if it can
Yeah,
harvest a couple of Feria.
unfortunately, it's gonna get the buff is gonna go on the Soul Eater, which he's not going to be able to play for a little while. So he doesn't get that impact. That's not going to be the most impactful one because generally you want to play Soul Eater when it's quite large.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so +2/+2 on that usually won't make such a big difference as 2+2/+2 on, say, one of the many 1/1s that this sort of list is going to run.
Yeah, agreed.
Lou is going to try and work out whether he wants to move towards Helios or away from him. At this point, Lou doesn't know that he's up against Sack. It could potentially still be a mono green deck.
Well, why would he play Court Jester in a mono green deck? With all the buffs that green has, why would you need Court Jester?
The only thing I'd say is it loses Elderwood Embrace. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
um, it's more likely to be Sack, but he doesn't know it 100%. Now he'll know that he's up against Sack, and
Right.
Helios's hand is very. It's going to be very clunky with the double Soul Eaters. Um,
Do you think that Lou, by going to the same side, came to that same conclusion that he was going against Sack?
um, I think if you're red control, you probably want to go to both sides anyway. So
Right.
maybe he just decides, it's difficult because you know that there's no wind soldiers in this format. So maybe you're a bit more comfortable going towards the same side because they have less ways to actually deal with your minions. It
That's a
all has
great
to be
point.
on board.
That might be one of the most the most impactful cards not being in the format is
Yeah,
Wind Soldier.
no wind soldier and no
No
soldiering
Soul Drain.
means
Yeah.
yellow is really light on removal options. I
Mm-hmm.
think they still have Choking Sands and Last Nightmare, but
Yep.
they're generally a lot less efficient. So Lou deciding here to farm both of his own wells. Um, I think he was considering against Sack because you know that your opponent has Soul Eaters. You're always on. There's always this kind of clock that's maybe not relevant on board, but you know that it's there. So
Mm.
I think he was really
Yep.
considering making aggressive lands and trying to kind of put pressure on Helios early. He's chosen instead to just try and farm both of his wells, and then maybe we'll see something a bit more aggressive from him. Also, he has the Blood Obelisk in hand, so maybe he wants
That's
more.
that's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
Like, what was that factoring? How was that factoring into his decision making there?
Oh, and Lou picks up a really nice play here with the double neutrals to collect, and then Ground Shaker on the 1/1 Shaitan Assassin, and Cypher's Wrath to finish it off. And Helios will just be left with two Soul Eaters in hand, which is not going to be. It's going to be really difficult for him to get back from this. One will be a 5/5, so maybe he has some chances. But I think it's worth playing the Cyphers this turn rather than waiting just because you know that Helios is so fairy starved.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely
And
take away that Faria.
that's not what you want. So yeah, Helios is going to be going to have to pass the turn,
Forced,
and
yeah, forced to draw that turn, so he can't make a land.
yeah.
So he's still
So
2 turns behind.
yeah, how do you feel about that? Do you think he should have just played it a bit safer and made sure that he had the guaranteed Soul Eater next turn?
Okay, so I'm not going to criticize Helios,
Yeah,
but I think in this case there is still a gap here between the two sides of the board, and if there ever is a case to be made, in my opinion, now is the time that you could make that land.
yeah.
Like you said, to guarantee the Soul Eater,
I
because you
think
have the time.
particularly when you're against red, anything you draw it might get taken out anyway with say a Flame Burst or a Cypher's Wrath.
Mm,
So,
right.
but at the same time, maybe he just wants to like speed his progression through his deck up. It's not just about finding something to play now. If you're 1 or 2 cards ahead of where you would have been, say 3 turns from now, that might be the difference
Mhm.
between whether you drew your answer or whether you didn't. And now he actually has access to a Bloom Sprite, and um, the Deathwalk had been able to sack the Bloom Sprite, which he wouldn't if he didn't draw last turn. So it seemed to work out pretty well for him in the end. And because Lou didn't manage to get enough pressure on, now Helios is actually gonna he gets some board presence back, and I think we'll see a Soul Eater. Maybe not immediately, but fairly soon.
That was crafty what I did with the I forget what you call it, seedling.
Yeah, yeah,
So by the time the axe grinder gets down there, it will be able to trade favorably.
yeah. He could even boost it a second time with the Overgrown Tower.
Oh, he did. He did with the Runin's
Oh,
command
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. We see Wandering Monk from Lou. This isn't a card that. It's a card that I'd be more expecting in general to see in a blue deck, but I guess they don't have access to Lore Thieves anymore, so I think Enchantment also isn't available, but Enchantress is.
well, I have seen it once in competitive play on a red deck, and that was actually against Imperia.
Right.
I lost to him in a qualifier, and it was just out of my reach. I was playing red control at the time, and I couldn't do 5 damage from across the board on it, so it's pretty sticky.
I think with it having 5 health, it's just in general a very solid collector.
Right.
Helios picking up the 3rd Soul Eater. It's not the most fortunate draw for him, but maybe Lou thinks that all of Helios's Soul Eaters are the same size, because this one was buffed by Court Jester, so he may make some
Right.
plays a little suboptimally just because he's not aware of this.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He has a fairly nice ground shaker here, though, to take out both the 6/5 on the right hand side and the Seedling. But this will
You
grow the
proc
Soul
the,
Eater. Yeah.
but you proc the Blood Obelisk, don't you?
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah. The only problem with this is now his ground shaker's kind of out of position. It's not going to be somewhere that it can fight. He does have the aggressive land set up also for the Axe Grinder.
okay.
Sadly, he's not quite going to be able to deal with the Soul Eater using a combination of Axe Grinder and
Wandering Monk.
yeah, because he had to make a land this turn.
Right.
A Royal Judge. I wonder if we'll see this come down. Yeah, Helios's alternative play really was to just draw a card. But I presume he'll take a safeguard here. Oh, punishment. Oh, punishment on the Wandering Monk, yeah. That's very smart. And now
Yes.
Helios just completely takes over the right-hand side.
Yep.
Double ciphers.
You got to use it on the
Yeah, you've got to
Soul
take
Eater.
out the Soul Eater. That was two very fortunate pickups from Lou. And this is really, really a tight game.
Yeah, it is going to be
But
close.
Red is always going to struggle dealing with um, beefy creatures, and Soul Eaters are just going to grow and grow and grow.
And no matter where, you know, Helios has the luxury of being able to place this Soul Eater at not only a safe distance, but a distance that can still reach the ground shaker, and or double collect if he chooses. So
Yeah,
it's a
I
nice
wonder
card.
what point do you start racing if you're Helios? Do you ever do it? If Lou doesn't play anything defensively this turn, which he won't be able to, do you just set up? Do you just double collect and then set up the next Soul Eater aggressively, or do you do it defensively?
I'm sorry, you asked when does Helios start racing?
Yeah, do you think he does it immediately,
Okay,
or Lou can actually play his Derelict Tower on this
right.
land next to the bottom right well, and that would actually deny the second collection from the Soul Eater, which might be something that Lou's considering here. Using the Derelict Tower not necessarily for its value immediately, but just to block.
Or he could be deciding whether to do that or to actually use the pings to finish off Helios, because he's got the flame burst in his hand, so he's got 6 damage in his hand technically.
Oh yeah, that's true. So yeah, I think Helios is going to be going defensively. Possibly going to see a shrine come down here.
Yeah, he could +1 and trade for free.
Or maybe he's just going to make the aggressive land and try and race. Because he has got the Runin Shrine in his hand.
Right,
So,
and that will take 2 hits off the ground shaker. Of course, he doesn't know about the flame burst in hand, but
I think he does still win this race. With the Bomb Slinger, Lou has enough to take out one of these Soul Eaters. He would have to use the Flame Burst, but I don't think he's going to care that much. He can also set up he can set up the mountain in front of the orb, and that way he can actually deny Helios from going face with the second Soul Eater. So with that Bomb Slinger pickup, I think Lou's just become a massive favourite, even though Helios has the Ruined Shrine in hand. Maybe he's wishing slightly he didn't set up the Derelict Tower on one of his own mountains.
Right.
Because I think one of the things with structures is you don't want them blocking spots that you can put your minions down.
Well, at the same time, though, too, that's why he's in the position to be able to do what you suggested, too, as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think Helios is regretting not playing the Shrine last turn and trading?
I think he
for free
probably will be now. I think, well, if he has any way that he can sack any of his own things, he can grow the Soul Eater to 11/11 potentially next turn and just use the... Oh, he can't use the Shrine. He can't go face because he needs to collect. So that's actually really smart by Lou, taking out the
one that was going to collect.
The one that was collecting, yeah.
Yeah. That's a subtle veteran move there.
And yeah, Helios is forced into this kind of collecting and playing Shrine. Otherwise, he's pretty dead.
I think I would have taken out the Bomb Slinger first, then played the Shrine. Because now
I can appreciate that, but at the same time, and is this lethal? Or is he not quite
the Shrine's
No, it's one off lethal.
Yeah.
But with a combination of
Don't you
the,
hit face first?
um, I think you
So
ground
go ahead.
shaker and then use your ping to like use the
No,
ping
because
from the tower.
he's got to get rid of 4 damage first.
Yeah. So the ground shaker will get rid of 3 damage, right? One
Oh,
on the
that's
soul
right.
eater.
That's right. I'm sorry. Yep.
Um, and then yeah, use the ping, and then you put him to 1. And then he's setting up the ground shaker in between the wells on the right hand side, so he can use, yeah,
The sprite.
yeah, yeah. Really well played by Lou. It looks like he was in a tough spot there, but he manages to come back with the picking up the bomb slinger. Helios went aggressive pretty early, and he ended up paying for that. But I think it's definitely something in his spot that it makes a lot of sense to do.
Yeah, I mean, you were asking about it right before he decided to do it.
Yeah.
So
And we have to bear in mind that Helios got really unlucky picking up all 3 Soul Eaters within the first 10 cards.
right.
So we see another Waryak. So originally Waryak was going to be on our kind of punishment list for mistakes that people made. Turns out people are
Right.
playing Waryak anyway. I'm really sad that we haven't seen any unlikely heroes now.
Right. We have seen the Hunted Outlaws. Well, I'm
Oh
kind of
yeah.
surprised that he didn't. I'm kind of surprised he didn't keep the Outcast Tower with his hand.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm assuming he's going to play this as a rush.
Maybe he just doesn't think that. Maybe his strategy isn't necessarily based around the structures, and he doesn't think it's that high of an impact card. Helios
Uh,
again with a very clunky hand, picking up 2 sunken towers, but he does have the Battletoads, which is probably gonna help him out, and maybe he can just start. If Lou goes aggressive, then Helios potentially can just move away all of his lands, all the lands that Lou puts down. So, aggressive Waryak start for Lou, and Helios has the choice between Battletoads or Luduan plus possibly Sunken Tower. Um,
right now, the Waryak can reach everything that's played on the second level
yeah.
by Helios.
So, do you want to just set up something to guaranteed collect, maybe a Ludwan, knowing that you have kind of double Sunken Tower in hand? Or do you want to save the Ludwan for when potentially you have the ability to play it? If you play Battletoads now, you could potentially draw into something like a Phantasm.
Right, and you still get to collect.
Yeah.
There's your guaranteed collector right there, and it saves the loot one. But it allows for profitable trade by this Waryak. But I don't think it's definitely better than not playing anything. Battletoads are so versatile.
Yeah, well, we kind of saw it a bit earlier as well. Rush lists are going to be pretty strong in this kind of format, just because if your opponent does get a hand of structures, then you're always going to have the creatures to deal with them, so they don't get value. That's kind of why
Right.
structures aren't seen so commonly in today's meta. Unfortunately for Helios, he has Triton Chef in his deck, or in his hand. So if he had Banquet, he would have been able to just use it immediately, but sadly, he doesn't. I think he might just use both Sunken Towers to block here. Oh, he just uses the one.
As Helios would say, I can get behind this.
Yeah, I think I probably would have played both. Just, I think if you're against green, you want. Well, I think this is just such a nice trade for Lou to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I like both because you're able to. I mean, there's 0 Feria. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And everything's relative. So at this point, playing both allows you to save both your creatures and guarantees that one of them will survive. And you can even set up this frog to double collect if
Yeah,
you wanted.
I think he may have just been trying to disguise the strength of his hand a bit. Um,
Hmm.
if it looks like he's got, if he has double sunken tower in hand, then you know that the rest of his hand's quite likely to be weak, um,
Hmm.
because he had them from the mulligan. So maybe he's just trying to disguise that information. Um, it's going to be really difficult for him to deal with the 7/7 here.
He could move it back one, play the lake in between, and then use the Gabriel Noble or even the fish as a body blocker. He wouldn't even have to play the lake in between.
Um,
Um, I mean, I'm not saying it's the best play, but
I think it's
you
very
want to.
difficult. I think you want to play the lake somewhere. I think your best chance of getting back into this game is something like Unbound into Triton Banquet on the Gabriel Noble. So I kind of like playing the lake somewhere where it can't get reached by um, the 7/7, but he's going to use the Sunken Tower. No, he's not going to use the Sunken Tower to move it away, which is what I thought might happen. Um,
I guess I mean if you sunken tower the land back, you give them a path to collect,
yeah.
and you basically waste the resource of the ruby fish or
Well,
the Gabriel
Lou
Noble.
is now down to just 3 Failure. Um, and if he's playing a mono green list, it's difficult to see any way that he can ever deal with the ruby fish. Setting up the Outland Ranger to double collect for him is going to be really nice. Do you think Lou's just going to use both of his sunken towers to kind of pull away the Outland Ranger? Oh, and he actually drew the Unbound Evolution. So if he drew the Unbound and he had that on the 4/4, he could actually potentially get back into this game. But because he offered the trade to Lou with the Vajoran Force, he's not going to have that opportunity.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah. And yeah, I kind of appreciate that you don't know you're going to draw Unbound, but I think Helios was so far behind. That sort of thing might have been his best way to get back into the game. And he did have the Banquet in hand already. I'm not sure if he would have exactly had enough Failure to do it, but you do know that the 6 cost is the best thing to Unbound, so maybe it was worth saving just in case. I don't know. What do you think of Lou's play here? Like, what do you think he should be doing?
It looks like he's consolidating. He getting that Faria taken care of.
Yeah, chooses not to trade into the Oakling. I guess the Oakling isn't really doing much here. He can use Banquet on the Oakling to block, but I don't think he's particularly happy about doing so.
No. Yeah, I like that play from Lou actually because what he did, taking care of the Oakland, is of no consequence right now.
Yep.
It's not collecting. It's not threatening. In fact, you want to leave it on the board rather.
Yeah, that's true.
The only thing I would question, I guess, is not doing 7 to the face, but
No, I think collecting seems quite important when you're so failure starved, and you are. You are a rush deck, but you seem to be in a pretty good spot. This ruby fish is going to do a lot of work, so you also need to be collecting yourself.
right.
It looks like Helios is setting up for the Banquet on the Mystic Beast here.
Speaking of a lot of work, the Outcast Tower is going to negate some of that.
Oh,
If
yeah.
he chooses to play it.
And
This is
then,
why I said I was surprised to see it
yeah.
tossed in the mulligan. In my opinion, it's strongest early, or at least that's what I felt in my experience.
I think what's great about this Outcast Tower is we've seen a lot of people playing Ludwan Blue in this tournament, and an
Right.
Outcast Tower just completely counters that because Ludwan's
Right.
never like if Outcast Tower is on the board, Ludwan doesn't actually collect from the enemy well,
Right.
so you're basically making them play a 3 Farrier 1/4. So I think the
Yeah.
Outcast Tower is a really smart choice from Lou here
Yeah. Yep. I like
in
it.
terms of the deck building.
He could campfire the Oakling
Campfire the Oakling, why?
to make it stick there for 2 turns
Oh, that's interesting.
with the Grove Guardian.
I really like the Grove Guardian positioning though, because now once he moves forward with the Rejoin Force, even Banquet won't be enough to take it out, especially after he uses Campfire on it. But
I really liked campfiring the Oakling there. I think that would have been pretty neat play because
it
it
would have
just
been
keeps
pretty
everything the
nifty. Yeah,
same. Yeah. Plus, with the Outcast Tower, it's just like freezing everything while his
yeah.
Verduran Force puts a 3-turn clock on him or 2-turn.
This Ludwan is going to be a 6/9. It will trade into both of. Oh, he could actually have. Well, there were possibilities with the Sunken Tower, possibly to use Banquet on the Mystic Beast if he didn't use the Campfire on the
Battled.
Vajoran Force last turn. So really smart play from Lou to see that potentially coming. Not only the possibility of Banquet, but also with the Sunken Tower when he puts the Grove Guardian down.
Yeah, and we know it wasn't to increase the clock or to decrease the clock on his face, on Helios's face, because 7 to 8 is still the same, 3 turns either way. So it was definitely for the toughness, like you said.
Yeah.
Technically, it wasn't a campfire, by the way. It was the overgrown tower.
Oh, is it the Overgrown Tower? Oh, I missed that. He still has Campfire in hand. Yeah.
I just got to say this. So if he campfires the Oakling, then it's still on the board, and he's down to 4. Helios is down to 4 life with the Waryak probably behind the Verduran Force, but it's not going to matter
I don't think
anyway.
it's going to make any difference. Lou's going to take this one 2-0.